the local media is putting the wrist up. But the national media, they're throwing them forward.
Something is off with the Cleveland Browns right now, and if you've been paying attention, you can feel it. The story being told nationally sounds completely different from what's coming out locally, and it's not just a small disagreement, it's a full-blown disconnect. One side is acting like the QB battle is already decided, while the other is quietly hinting that things are way more complicated behind the scenes. And when you see that kind of split, it usually means one thing: somebody isn't telling the full truth, because if everything was normal, the message would be consistent, but it's not. And that's exactly why this situation is starting to feel a lot bigger than just a quarterback competition.
My guess is Deshaun Watson.
I'll say that.
But that's money talks, right? No, because the money's paid already. That's different. You didn't, I mean, you did have to pay him years ago to get him, but that money's paid.
Right.
Here's why. Here's my argument. When he's been healthy, he's been for sure good enough to be a starter. And there are games when he broke his shoulder. Was that 2 years ago? 2 years ago, right? When he broke his shoulder.
Yeah.
He led the team back from a comeback, on a comeback, and was like, all right, this guy's really starting to play well.
Right.
Now let's set the stage properly, because this didn't just come out of nowhere. The Browns are walking into a season where the spotlight is locked in on their quarterback room, and right at the center of it, you've got Deshaun Watson trying to reclaim control of a situation that hasn't gone the way anyone expected, and Shedeur Sanders stepping in as the young, confident challenger who people believe could flip everything upside down. National media outlets have been quick to frame this as Watson's job to lose, almost like Shedeur is just there to develop. But locally, the tone is completely different. Local reporters, beat writers, and insiders are not speaking with that same level of certainty, and that gap is exactly where things get interesting. Here's the part nobody is talking about. National media doesn't live inside the day-to-day reality of a team. They're working off narratives, big-picture storylines, and sometimes outdated assumptions. When they look at the Browns, they see the contract, the investment, and the expectations tied to Watson, and they assume the organization will stick with that no matter what. But local media is hearing the whispers, seeing the practices, and noticing the small shifts in tone from coaches and players. They're picking up on things like hesitation, like subtle changes in language, like the way certain names are being mentioned more often than others. And when those signals start stacking up, it tells a very different story than the one being broadcast nationwide.
I think when you get to the national perspective, it's more of a overarching theme. It's like a bigger, a wide lens view of the situation. And if you were to look at the wide lens view, I think one of the things that they're looking at is Deshaun Watson has a more extensive body of work. So it's easier for you to say, well, I remember when he was in Houston, I remember when he did this, and but the problem is, he said it perfectly. He said, yeah, remember he broke his shoulder? And that was how many years ago? That hits you in the face, because it's like, man, it's been so long since he played. And he's had more injuries past.
This is where it gets dangerous, because when two narratives are running at the same time, fans don't know what to believe, and pressure starts building in all the wrong places. If the national media keeps pushing the idea that Watson is the guy, then every single mistake he makes is going to hit twice as hard. At the same time, if local media keeps hinting that Shedeur is making real progress, then every good throw, every highlight, every strong practice suddenly becomes fuel for a completely different conversation. And now you've got a locker room, a fan base, and an entire organization caught in between two competing realities. Let's break down what's actually being said, because the details matter here. When coaches speak to national outlets, the language is safe, controlled, and predictable. You hear things like, competition is healthy, or we believe in our quarterback room. But when those same coaches talk locally, the tone sometimes shifts just enough to raise eyebrows. There's more emphasis on development, more mention of giving younger players opportunities, and sometimes even subtle praise that feels a little more targeted. It's not outright saying Shedeur is taking over, but it's definitely not shutting that idea down either. And in the NFL, what's not said can be just as important as what is.
I think the biggest hurdle for Deshaun Watson and him and his quarterback competition is, I just saw Kenny Pickett last year pull a hamstring, and basically that was the end of his camp. That was it. So for me, can Deshaun Watson make it through and get through every single day in practice and you're fighting and going up an uphill battle against a younger guy.
Stats and performance trends only add more fuel to this situation. Watson hasn't exactly dominated since arriving in Cleveland, and that's just being real about it. The consistency hasn't been there, the explosive plays haven't shown up the way people expected, and the overall command of the offense has been questioned more than once. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders is coming in with momentum, confidence, and something else that matters a lot in today's game: belief. Young quarterbacks who believe they belong tend to push situations faster than expected, and when they start making plays in practice, that energy spreads quickly. Teammates notice it, coaches feel it, and media, especially local media, starts reporting it.
I think a few things go into why they are saying Deshaun Watson can be the starter. I think they do remember when he was healthy and even when he was balling out for the Houston Texans. I think the money for national people are going to always be a part of the conversation. On my way into work today, I heard LaShawn McCoy talking about Deshaun Watson should start because they owe him money, or Jimmy should get something else out of it. And so those are going to always be talking points. And besides, what is it, April 14th? You kind of need something to talk about. I think that Deshaun Watson is going to be highly motivated, and I think that Deshaun Watson is going to do everything that he can to try to win this quarterback competition.
This is where young players usually make a mistake. They either get overwhelmed by the moment, or they try to force their way into the spotlight too quickly. But from what's being hinted at locally, Shedeur isn't doing that. He's staying composed, taking advantage of opportunities, and letting the situation come to him. And that's exactly the kind of approach that makes a coaching staff start thinking differently. Because now it's not just about potential, it's about readiness. And once that question enters the building, is he ready right now? Everything changes. At the same time, you've got to look at the business side of this, because the NFL is never just about football. Watson's contract is massive, and that alone creates pressure to keep him as the starter. National media understands that part, which is why they lean heavily toward the idea that he's locked in. But local media is closer to the reality that winning games is the ultimate priority. If the Browns start losing, or if the offense struggles, that financial commitment won't matter as much as people think. Coaches and front offices don't survive long by sticking with something that isn't working, especially when there's a potential solution sitting right there on the roster.
All logic continues to say that the best thing for the Cleveland Browns is to give Shedeur Sanders every chance, every ounce of runway, every opportunity to win this job. And if he can win it, if he can keep it, if he can grow and sustain, that's great. But there is no way that in the Cleveland Browns' long or short-term thinking that they should be thinking Deshaun Watson's the best for this team in 2026, because 2023 and 2020.
And while all this is happening in Cleveland, the rest of the NFL is quietly shaping the context around it. Quarterback battles are becoming more common, and teams are quicker than ever to make changes if they feel like it gives them an edge. You've seen it with young quarterbacks stepping in earlier than expected. You've seen it with veterans getting benched despite big contracts. And you've seen how quickly momentum can shift when a team finds something that clicks. The Browns are not operating in a vacuum. They're watching what's happening across the league, and that absolutely influences how they handle this situation. Here's the part nobody is talking about. The disconnect between local and national media isn't random. It usually happens when an organization is trying to manage a transition without fully committing to it publicly. National media gets the official line. Local media picks up on the reality behind it, and when those two don't match, it often means a decision hasn't been finalized yet. The Browns might not have made up their minds completely, and instead of rushing it, they're letting the competition play out while controlling the narrative as best they can. This is where it gets dangerous, because the longer this goes on, the harder it becomes to control. If Shedeur keeps impressing, the calls for him to start will get louder. If Watson struggles even slightly, the criticism will intensify, and once fans start choosing sides, the pressure inside the building becomes impossible to ignore. You're no longer just managing a quarterback room, you're managing expectations, emotions, and the future direction of the franchise. And let's not ignore the locker room dynamic, because that's where these situations are really decided. Players know who's performing, they know who gives them the best chance to win, and while they might not say it publicly, their energy, their reactions, and their support start to reveal the truth over time. Local media, being closer to the team, is more likely to catch those subtle shifts. National media, they usually don't see that until it what becomes obvious to everyone. This is where young players usually make a mistake, but it's also where organizations make mistakes too. If the Browns misread this situation, if they hold on to a narrative that doesn't match reality, it could cost them an entire season. But if they get it right, if they recognize the moment and make the right call at the right time, it could completely change the trajectory of the franchise. That's how thin the line is in the NFL. When you zoom out, this isn't just about Watson versus Shedeur. It's about how teams handle change, how media shapes perception, and how quickly things can shift when performance doesn't match expectations. The Browns are sitting in the middle of a situation that could define their next few years. And the fact that local and national media are telling two different stories is a clear sign that something is brewing beneath the surface. So now the real question becomes, who's right? Is the national media correct in believing this is still Watson's team no matter what? Or is the local media seeing the early signs of a shift that hasn't fully happened yet? Because one of these narratives is going to collapse eventually. And when it does, it's going to expose everything. The decisions, the pressure, and the truth about where this team is actually headed. And if you're the Browns, you don't get to hide from that moment. It's coming. The only question is whether you're ready for it, or whether it's going to hit you harder than you expected.